Hey guys, MetalJesus here, and I am back again with Kelsey. How's it going?
Pretty good, thanks for having me. So today we're going to be talking about some of the rarest DS games out there. These are not necessarily good DS games, some of them are. But we're just going to talk about some of the hardest to find ones that we've had difficulty getting.
Awesome, let's take a look. So we have 10 games here that are pretty rare and expensive. But before we get started here, I do want to mention that typically I don't like to put the actual prices of these games in the video. And the reason for that is very simple, is that it changes every day. Sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down. And so for this video, down in the video description below, we'll include a link to the current prices as of today. And that way you guys can go and kind of track that.
Because it does change. I mean,
it does.
If we tell you the price now and you look at this video 5 years from now, it might be laughable how cheap it is or how expensive it is. And you never know.
That has happened in my previous videos that I did with John Hancock, his amazing Super Nintendo collection. Go back and watch those videos and be like, you can't get Earthbound for that much money. It definitely dates a video, so we're just trying to kind of, address that here.
Yeah. So let's get started with the one that we had the most trouble finding.
Right.
That would be Dokapon Journey for the DS. So this was released basically alongside the Wii version of this game. There's also a PS2 version released about a year before that. It's kind of like an RPG slash board game, which is a cool concept, but it is a very long game and one that you'll definitely want to play with other people because playing against the computer is really boring. Yeah, you basically only play the game 25% of the time. You're waiting for the computer the rest of it. The other thing we want to mention here too is that we're showing complete in box games, and that definitely raises the price. Especially, well, I guess that applies to basically any console, but yeah, for DS games, like a lot of times places like GameStop will sometimes have these listed on their website, which I still think you should jump on because they usually have the price too low, at least on rare DS games, but it will almost always come cart only. That's been my experience at least. So it's cool to find this complete in box. Took us like a month.
Oh yeah, looking every day.
And that was on eBay.
Yeah.
Like we didn't even find copies on eBay. So this one was definitely hard to find.
Yeah.
And I don't really recommend it that much unless you have friends who want to play a long board game RPG with you. Which would be weird. Maybe you do.
Should we do this one next?
Sure.
Okay. You have to help me pronounce this because
Solatorobo.
Thank you.
I want to hear you try though.
Solatorobo?
Yeah.
Okay.
Solatorobo.
Was that good?
Yeah.
I'll stick with the Red Hunter.
There you go. It's Red the Hunter. So.
Fine. See, I should have said you do this one. So this is a spiritual successor or sequel to Tales Concerto.
Which is a PS1 game.
Right.
Not very often that you see a sequel happen that many years later.
Yeah, and this one is really sought after. It is an action RPG slash beat 'em up, basically. You play as furry little critters that go around. It's got great graphics, really beautiful game. It's got an anime cutscene in the beginning of it. I was really happy to, through you, get a copy of this for my collection. This version of it also comes with a soundtrack CD, which is pretty awesome.
I think they all did, but a lot of people may have thrown away this outer packaging that comes with it. So it's a regular DS case inside of this big cardboard case. Funny story for me about this was I actually bought a copy for myself on eBay, and 1 week later it came into the store. So
and you messaged me and I was like, woohoo! But it's one of those things where you can spend months and months and months trying to get this version of it, this good of a copy.
Absolutely.
And it can take forever.
Yeah.
So
it is a good game though.
It is.
Alright, so the next one is a pretty funny one. This is My World, My Way. This is an Atlas RPG. I would say this game is good if you have like a small daughter or niece or something that you want to try to get into RPGs. It's about a spoiled princess who has met a really handsome guy and wants to impress him, but he's like, nah, you're too spoiled, I'm an adventurer. You've got to prove that you can be an adventurer too. So she chops off all of her hair and goes on an adventure. But she's a spoiled princess, so she can attack, but mostly she pouts, and you use like throwing a tantrum to change the tactics of the battle. So for instance...
Really?
Yeah, so You will usually attack second, but when you start the battle, you can use some PP or pout points.
PP?
Yes. Well, PP is like, that's also in like, you know.
See where my mind went? I'm sorry.
It's also in like Pokemon and in tons of RPGs. But anyways, it stands for pout points in this one. You can use them to do things like go first in the battle, or you can make them, you know, paralyzed, or make them not able to cast any spells. Instead of using magic necessarily to do those things, it's like a whole different mechanic. The graphics aren't great in this. The story's not that great either. It's kind of funny-ish. I don't know that it's worth the money that I spent on this one, though. I played it for a couple hours, and it's not a bad game, but it is very simple and kind of childish, and I think it might be good for getting someone younger into an RPG. I don't think anyone who's been playing RPGs for a while is going to enjoy it very much, though.
Next up for me is a game I was so excited to get, and that is the Dark Spire. And there's no other game like this current generation. So basically this is like a throwback to my childhood. Those first person dungeon crawl RPGs of like the Commodore 64 era. That's what this is. This is an amazing game, super hard.
It's very old school, and I think if you are not into the old school stuff, it might not be as amazing as you're making it out to be.
I think for me, what's so cool is that it got made at all, because, you know, this is so old school that there's a story, but there's almost no animation. It's stat driven. It is brutally difficult. Like the first time I played this, I think I got halfway through the first level, and I was dying all the time. Wow. Reloading, dying. Another really cool part about this that I love, though, is that this is old school looking, but it even has a classic mode to the graphics. Where, so you know how the graphics initially when you boot it up look kind of like a Commodore 64. Well, you can turn it into where it looks like 1980s MS-DOS. Like it's line drawings.
That's awesome.
It's crazy. But yet the game is still exactly the same, so you can play it in that really old style. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's a little bit collectible, because people like me, there's not a lot of experiences like this, and so we look for it.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's cool.
Alright, so I'm going to talk about a kind of weird one, because you guys have probably seen the game, but I don't know if you've seen the specific version of the game. So this is Pokemon SoulSilver, which is an expensive game on its own, but this is the Walmart Special Edition packaging. So if you pre-ordered your game from Walmart when this came out, it came in this bigger package that had a figure packed in. It also had a weird little cover for your Pokewalker, which you use to, you put a Pokemon in there and you can have it earn experience points by walking around. It's one of those, like,
I remember those
pedometer things. So this is a great game. If you haven't played Pokemon games at all, this is honestly where I recommend you start.
Oh, really? Okay.
Pokemon Heart Gold and SoulSilver are both really excellent. They're modern enough that, you know, the old ones, if you go back and try to play them and you didn't start there, they're going to feel really slow to you. These ones have added a lot of the modern things to them, so they don't feel quite as slow. You also can pick a Pokemon to just follow you around, which is a cute little added bonus. But this is one of the bigger Pokemon games. It's got one of the longer stories, because you can go to the original Pokemon area, Kanto, and also the second generation Pokemon area, Johto. So. Well,
that box is amazing.
Yeah, I only have the SoulSilver one. There is a Heart Gold one, obviously, as well. It is really difficult to find this specific packaging for it, though.
Wow, that's cool. All right, next up for me is Little Red Riding Hood Zombie Barbecue.
Which is the best name ever for a game.
It's a type of name, though, whenever you first read it, you're like, okay, that can't be a good game. Like, that sounds like a budget title or something, like, or maybe it was even lost in translation.
To me, it sounded awesome. Right away, I'm like, what? What is that? I must have it.
I know, and the good news is that this is a really fun game. It is so cool. So basically, it is a shooter. It is a top-down shooter. You play as Little Red Riding Hood, and it's cool because it's got a bunch of edge to it. So she's got a lot of attitude. It's cool because she's got shotguns, she's got lasers, she's got flamethrowers, and what I love about this is that it uses the dual screens really well because the levels are very tall. So it uses that. Also, the controls are very precise because it uses both the D-pad and also touch. So wherever you touch is where she aims. And then the D-pad at the bottom is moving her around on the bottom of the screen so she can dodge attacks. Fantastic game. I know. I'm so happy to finally own a copy of this. And when I got it, I just played it to death. It's like amazing. This is one of those games that uses the dual screens of the DS really well. It really does. And not a ton of DS games do that. Yep. So it's very true. So this is cool. All right, the next one I've got is Avalon Code, which is another RPG for the DS. This one is got a very interesting kind of mechanic to it. So your bottom screen is a code book, and you use it to change the attributes of different things around you. So you're gonna be doing things like registering monsters and weapons and that sort of thing like you do in a lot of RPGs where you have, you know, monster compendium or whatever, but you can also change the codes on them so you can change all of these monsters to have a certain weakness or illness, or you can change your rusted sword into like a bronze sword. It's a weird, interesting mechanic that is very difficult to describe, so sorry that I'm not doing a great job with it. But the other cool thing about this game is that it has some of that kind of like Harvest Moon-y or Persona-y like romance options to it, so you can spend time with other people around and kind of get relationships with the people. And character development, stuff like that. And it's an action RPG, which is always cool. So. All right, next up is a game that I bought a long time ago, thankfully, because it's kind of expensive now. That is Retro Game Challenge. Another DS game that doesn't feel like anything else on the system, at least I'm aware of. I love this game so much. I know! So this is such a cool game. It's based, I guess, on a real Japanese game show, is kind of what I read. But basically you're transported back to the 1980s, and then it feels just like, you know, a childhood back then where you're playing games like Space. They're not exactly Space Invaders, but it's a bunch of kind of clones of that era. Right. And you're doing specific challenges. It kind of feels like, what's that NES challenge that came out on the... NES Remix or whatever. Yeah, it feels a little bit like that, doesn't it? A little bit. I actually personally have mostly played just the free play mode on it, which is where you don't have to complete any specific challenges. You just go through these games. But there's a couple really cool ones. One of them is like I guess it's sort of similar to like Ninja Jajamaru, if you've ever played that's a platformer game. One. Yeah, and you can hide behind these doors to kill enemies or hide from enemies, and then you just jump on their head to kill them normally. So there's a bunch of just really very Famicom NES feeling games in there. They're all similar to another game, but different enough for it to be a fresh, you know, you're not just playing an NES game. It's cool too, like I mentioned, it throws you back into the 80s, and so this even includes like fake manuals or fake gaming magazines. It's so cool. Like a fake Game Genie type thing where you can get cheat codes and stuff. It's great. It is definitely one of my favorite games on the DS. Highly recommend that one. All right, so we've also got Blue Dragon Awakened Shadow. I'm just going to keep talking about RPGs, I guess. This is another RPG. I have not played this one yet, but this is the third in the series of the Blue Dragon series. Which originally came out on the 360. Yes. Yeah. Well, the first one did. First one was on 360. There's two on the DS, Blue Dragon Plus, and then this one. Okay. And the interesting thing about the Blue Dragon games is all three of them are different styles of RPGs. So the first one was kind of Final Fantasy-like, you know, just a turn-based thing. The second one was more like a tactics game, and this one's an action RPG, which is kind of weird. You can also customize your character in it. You can play with other people online or, you know, locally if they have the game as well. So it's kind of a fresh take on an RPG. There's not a whole lot of multiplayer RPGs on the DS. That's definitely a new... And it's made by the guy who originally made Final Fantasy. Yes. Because I remember on the 360 that was like a big selling point. People were very excited, right? Yep. And the art is by Akira Toriyama of Dragon Ball Z and Chrono Trigger fame. So it's going to feel very familiar and nostalgic to you if you grew up watching Dragon Ball Z or playing Chrono Trigger or something like that. Very cool. And then the last one that we have here is one I just got a couple days ago, which took forever to find. Now, that is called Shepherd's Crossing 2 on the DS. Which sounds like a Bible game, It does, I know. Like a wisdom tree game. Yeah, totally does. That's what I thought it was at first. But this is actually
almost exactly like Harvest Moon. It is a game where you raise livestock and you can raise crops. Now, the difference between this and Harvest Moon is it's a lot more like dire. Like, you can run out of supplies and die, but which you can't really do in Harvest Moon. So this is, you have to be paying more attention in this one. But it's got the same sort of, interact with your neighbors, and maybe you can marry one of them someday, and you can raise some animals and that sort of thing. It's very similar to Harvest Moon, and it got pretty good reviews too.
It's weird though, looking at some of these games, because it's like, why did that not... Like, why is it so expensive? Do you have any theories on that?
Well, this one is so weird. There's hardly even reviews on this one. There's just not a whole lot of mentions of this game at all online. So I don't know exactly why this game, was it just low print? Was it a developer that just could not get anyone to review this game? I mean, I honestly don't know, but I just don't think there's that many copies out there because it wasn't even really reviewed very much.
Yeah. And there are people out there who are going after complete DS collections. We met somebody in Portland who was like one game, or it was Cowlitz, who was one game away. Remember that?
She was one game away, and she wasn't even totally sure that game was actually out there.
Yeah. So it sounds like the list is even in flux.
Yeah.
Huh. But those type of people will be looking for these type of, especially the RPGs, right?
Absolutely. And there's a lot of RPGs. The ones we talked about, at least at the time of filming this video, there's a ton of games that are sort of in the like kind of expensive but not crazy expensive range, where they're like more than $40, which sounds like a lot for a DS game, but there's not a whole lot right now that go super far beyond that.
That's true. But the DS was such a great system. I think that there will be a time where people will get nostalgic for it.
I think so too.
And GameStop threw out so many of the cases and all that stuff, and so having complete collections or complete boxes like this is very rare.
Yeah.
I mean, you just don't see it as much anymore.
And if you want a totally unsolicited tip, make friends with the people at GameStop and ask them to give you their cases instead of throwing them away.
That's right, because they're probably getting traded in all the time.
Yeah, they just throw them in the dumpster otherwise, so...
You're so smart. But as you mentioned, though, we could keep going here because we actually removed some of the games that weren't super expensive, but there's a lot of really good stuff there. There's
a lot of games that are definitely really rare, and I think that this is a video that could probably have a part 2 at some point.
Yeah.
But the DS isn't really old enough yet for a lot of those things to have broken away. In fact, there's a good example. Infinite Space was given a re-release. So that was a really expensive game. And then it got reprinted again. And now it's at least somewhat reasonable. So it used to be a game that was impossible to find.
Yeah.
So I think the DS is still too new for us to really say these are definitely the rarest of all time forever.
Right.
And it might need a second video at some point.
Which I'm happy to do because I love collecting for the DS.
Me too.
I know. All right, so where can people find you on the web?
You can find me on Twitter at KelseyLewin. I also have a YouTube channel now. It's just youtube.com/KelseyLewin. And my podcast at Game Blitz Show.
Awesome. All right, guys, thanks very much for watching. Thank you for subscribing, and take care. Hey guys, Metal Jesus here, and I am back again with Kelsey.
How's it going?
It was the finger. You just weren't,
Normally you ask me how I'm doing. I wasn't prepared.
Oh, I'm sorry. How's it going? That's right.
Okay. You don't have to ask me. I just wasn't prepared to not answer that question.
What was the question?
So I blurted
What did I ask? How's it going?
That's what you normally say.
What did I just... Oh,
you just said with Kelsey. I'm like...
Like what? A game show host. With Kelsey.
You're pretty good at that.
It's gonna be one of those videos.
Yeah, yes it is.
That was a fun little outtake at the end there. Hope you guys enjoyed that. This video was pretty interesting because I captured all of the footage for all of these games, and I have to say, my world, my way. Oh my god, I was dreading having to capture that footage, but when I played that game, it's actually not half bad. Now, it's not great, but it was really fun. I actually played it way longer than I expected to. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.